Matt, I just want to note that the meeting minutes that were in the packet, Lynn Zabel noticed an error. I put Winona County SWCD instead of Wabasha County.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So the corrected copy is in front of Lynn for his signature.
Okay, we have the correct copy in front. Well, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second, Lynn.
Okay, motion by Steve,
Second by Lynn.
second by Lynn. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, everything. Okay, carries. Okay, approve agenda. Sheila, anything else you need to add?
I need to add to the agenda a cover crop payment under the discussion for the 319 update. And also, Matt, we might want to have introductions for Bob.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep. We'll do that, board reports.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Sheila, do you have an extra
Okay.
copy of the agenda?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I've got it electronically, but I'd like
I'm
to
sorry.
write down any changes as I go.
When we got into the room,
Okay.
it was kind of,
okay, the cover crops, we can put that under after E.
yes.
Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, W, F, cover crops.
Yep.
Okay, anything from board members?
Well, we'll just go around the board or room like we usually do.
Yep, go ahead, Steve. You run that, please.
Okay, so I'll start. Winona County, we're dealing with funding our jail. Nothing really too germane to this board. Maybe the DNR is asking to shoot deer on Winona County property sharpshooting. So that's a little bit of a land issue. Of course, we're working hard on vaccine distribution and a couple of court cases we've got going on, ongoing stuff. But that's really all I've got for this board. James?
Yeah, basically it was pretty routine matter as far as Olmsted Soil and Water. We just transferred, got a new chair, Cheryl Winters, and then we just went through and sort of reassigned, well, actually I think everyone pretty much took their same other board assignments as well, so that stayed pretty much the same.
And Matt, were you kind of wanting this to be introductions at the same time, or how?
Yeah, please. Let's, Bob like to introduce himself. Great.
Okay. Well, we'll just continue around the room, Lynn, and then. Are you done, James?
Yeah,
Or?
just Olmsted County Soil and Water,
Okay.
Commissioner District 1.
Okay.
Lynn Zabel, Wabasha Soil and Water. We have two new members this year, Chet Ross and Charlene Plenner. We did the whole beginning year thing like everyone does. We had one thing that was a little bit interesting. Jen Walls, we're subcontracting with her yet to work on the Zumbro floodplain outreach. And she sent out 45 contacts via letter, got 8 responses. I guess 2,500 comes from Nature Conservancy and 2,500 comes from the SWCD towards the deal. It looks like there might be one handoff to Minnesota Land Trust for long-term thing, and then 2 possibilities for trust for public lands. Developing a relationship with 10, 15 landowners, so that's something somebody interested in. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Bob Walkus, the Wabasha County Commissioner, appointee to this board. I don't have too much yet, just trying to get my feet wet and figure out who's doing what and why and how things work, so. Probably all I got now.
And you know Sheila? Or have you met Sheila?
We've met,
Met,
we've
yes.
communicated.
Yes, we
First
have.
time in person.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you, Bob.
Okay, I think that concludes the board reports and introductions, Matt.
Okay, so I didn't get much to report except unless you people want to look at my x-rays someday. So, on there.
Yeah, I guess your report. Yeah.
Okay. We'll go to, we've approved consent items. Sheila?
Okay, the bills payable, I have an amended copy. Did I give everybody the amended copy?
Yep.
Okay. And what is new from what was sent out in the packet are what's in red on the back side of the page. We have the payment to the County of Winona. The MCIT payment was approved last meeting, and it was an ACH payment that was taken care of online during the month of January. And then paying out for technical assistance for the drinking water grant to Winona County and Wabasha County SWCDs, and also to our partners, Wabasha County SWCD and Root River SWCD, for the surface water assessment grant. And we finished up that report. And then, of course, to the 319 reduction grant, nitrogen reduction grant, we have 2 checks to the University of Minnesota for reimbursement of lab samples from last fall. And also, I have that cover crop payment in there. And that total is $17,221.
Okay, any questions on that from the consent bills payable?
I'd move to approve the consent business.
Okay, motion by Steve, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bob.
Okay, second by Bob. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All said aye.
Hey, okay, that has passed. Okay, if we go to board discussion and action items, we're up to election of officers, new year. Anybody has any preference?
I talked to Josh Elsing. I asked him if he would accept a nomination to chair this board, and he said if he was nominated, he said he would. I know you've been chair for a good long while, as long as I've been on this board, 8 years. I wouldn't mind seeing more involvement than just one county being chair. So I'm gonna nominate Josh, and I do have a text from him saying that he would accept that nomination to chair. And he
Go ahead, Steve.
He did used to be the mayor of Altura, so he has experience running a meeting.
Okay, we have a nomination by Steve for Josh. Is there a second?
I'd second.
Lynn Zabel seconds.
Okay. Any other nominees? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 They all
What's
said
the vote?
aye, but I asked for nays, I guess,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Josh will be the chair. Well, since Josh isn't here, we'll have to go through the list of
Yeah.
vice chair. So, any nominees for vice chair?
I'm vice chair now. I guess I'll nominate myself.
Steve is, you're the alternate secretary treasurer.
Oh, shoot, that's right.
I'm the vice chair right now. Yeah.
I got corrected. I think I'm thinking about soil and water.
Yeah.
Seems like you got it, Lynn, so I'll nominate you as vice chair.
Okay, James Rentz has nominated Lynn Zabel as vice chair.
Okay. Is there a second there, Steve?
I'll second.
Bob seconds.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Ask for opposed.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Lynn's vice chair. Well, then Lynn, theoretically, should run this meeting, don't you
Yep.
think, Steve?
Yes,
So,
he should.
so then Lynn will have to, don't we need to get a secretary treasurer or not?
I don't think so. Well, we do need a secretary treasurer and then an alternate. Josh is secretary treasurer. Lynn is the alternate secretary treasurer. But as far as the minutes for this meeting, he can still sign the minutes. In fact, I think he already did. But yeah, so we'll need
We need to fill those positions.
right, we need to fill those positions.
So we'll take nominations then for the secretary treasurer position.
I'll nominate Bob Watkins.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded for Bob Walkus to be secretary treasurer. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So now we should have an alternate then, in
Right.
case Bob doesn't make it, so. Now we'll take nominations for alternate secretary treasurer.
I'll nominate James Rentz.
Any second?
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Bob to nominate James Rentz as alternate secretary treasurer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? No? Okay. James is alternate.
And now that we have some new officers, what I need to do is bring the minutes of this meeting to the bank for signatures.
Yep.
So right now, it's Matt, Steve, Josh, and Lynn, and myself. But now we need to add, James and Bob to the list. Josh is already a signatory.
I should be removed.
So you want to be removed?
Well, I mean, I don't
Okay.
serve any position other than a
Okay.
voting member.
And Matt, do you want to be removed from the list?
I didn't quite get that. Removed from the list,
To sign
right,
the
Sheila?
checks, so I need to get some signature cards for Bob and James to be able to sign checks. And Steve indicated he wanted to be removed from the list since he's not a vice chair. Do you want the same as well?
Yeah, well, you might as well remove me from the list
Okay.
too, because, yeah, the other people will be signing them now.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, that'll be easier because when I called the bank, they noticed that your driver's license was expired and that I would need to get that copy from you. So that'll save me one step. But I will need copies of driver's license scanned and sent. But after this, I'll communicate with everybody to get those signature cards and everything.
All right. So, is that it for the officers then? I think so,
Mhm.
from
Yes,
what I
it is.
remember. Okay. Then we have item C, which is approve attachment A to Whitewater Joint Powers
Nope.
Board Agreement.
Financial update.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I got my notes down past the thing. I have to apologize. I'm not as prepared as I would usually be at a meeting if I was running it, so I'll do the best I can. But thanks for the help.
Yeah, no problem.
So, all right, the financial update by Sheila. Update on cash
Okay.
reserves.
As of end of December, the end of the year, our balance of checking and money market minus unearned income, it comes to $70,875. And at the end of January, that total was $77,540. That was because we had received some payments, so that bumped up a little bit. And that's all I have on that, but I suppose we could lead on into the unearned or cash reserve discussion. Should
Do you
I-
wanna-
Okay.
Do that now then? Cash reserve thing? Go ahead.
All right, at our last meeting, when we reviewed the audit, Steve brought up that he wanted to know what our cash reserves were for the Whitewater Joint Powers Board. So I contacted some other people who manage joint powers boards that are related to water resources. And I also did some research, so I have on that first page, right behind the financial statements, this sheet in the packet. And what it is it takes into account every month of the Whitewater Joint Powers Board since the Whitewater Coordinator position was merged with the Winona County Water Planner position. So that was like the March of 2011 when Natalie Siderius was hired. So I figured anything before that wasn't representative because you actually had employees with the Whitewater versus a contract person. And so this balance sheet shows for every month, the amount that we have in our checking account, plus the amount in the money market, subtracting out any unearned revenue, and unearned revenue is monies that the board receives from grants ahead of time. When the grant is awarded, they give us money. And so it's money that's in the bank, but it's not yet used for its
Not
intent.
allocated.
Well, it's allocated for the grant, but it's just not used up yet.
But these numbers are essentially what's in the Whitewater Joint Powers discretionary account.
Right.
Okay.
The account after unearned revenue is subtracted from it.
Yeah, and so this chart for me was very helpful,
Okay, good.
and it was just what I was looking for. And I guess Bob didn't hear the discussion at the last meeting. I was a little bit concerned. I like to make sure that, personally, my political position is I don't want balances to really kind of grow out of hand, and for government agencies to maybe hoard taxpayers' dollars. So I wanted to see what the balances were at and what they've been at, and I'm comfortable with everything I see here. So I don't
That's a
think
good perspective.
yeah, I'm not seeing anything that is alarming. I think we should have some kind of balance, and I think in my view, 70,000 is a good plenty for this group.
When I looked at it, when I got it online or whatever, it jumps around a bit, but especially since money isn't maybe worth what it was 10 years ago either, I think we're well within the parameters as you alluded to as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel good about it.
Yeah, it was an interesting exercise to do. I thought it was valuable. And I thought, looking at February of 2013, here we're up to, that was one of the
Yep.
ones that I highlighted, the highest one, $112,787. And then January of 2015, we were $12,700 in the hole, if we didn't have unearned income sitting in the bank to help us float that grant. We had to pay some of the grants that we get. We bill on the grant, and then every quarter we write the invoice, and then we wait for the money to come in. So you would need at least 4 months to float some grants, and depending on how the money flows for that expenditures for the grant. And then some grants, like the drinking water protection grant that we have, they paid us 50% right off the bat, so that's sitting in the bank. But then when we get towards the end of that grant, when we get the 40% payment, and then when that's spent up, we don't get anything till the final report is submitted. So then there you have 10% that you're holding, on the hook for until that final report is done. So depending on which grant we have and how the money flows, it's nice having a reserve to be able to float grants in those.
In Winona County, we strive for at least 5 months of operating reserves, to make payroll or whatever we might have to make. And so what you're indicating is we've got at least 4 months, right?
Yeah.
At a minimum, we've got 4 months.
Right. And when I talked with Bill Kennedy, he manages the Southeast Tech Joint Powers Board, he said 6 to 8 months is what he was comfortable with. He says, for just keeping the doors open, plus doing, figuring out what you need to pay for cost shares for different grants and things like that. I also talked to Kay Gross. She manages 2 Joint Powers Board, the TSA for that area, and then the Gerberga, and that's an 11-county Joint Powers Board. And she says with the TSA, they keep $1 million in the bank for staff compensation for, but they have staff, so that makes a difference. And but so anyway, just to give you a perspective of what others are doing.
Yeah, and so I'll just be frank about that. I see a difference between myself as an elected official and staff. Pretty much any staff I've dealt with at any organization will say we need more, we need to have plenty in reserves. I represent the people I vote for, or who vote for me, I should say, and they want to make sure that the government isn't sitting on $1 million, and if this gets audited, this is a beautiful chart for me to be able to show the taxpayers that we're not hoarding anything, we're using all that money, it's going on the ground. That's the minimum amount we can take from you to make these operations happen. And if we were sitting on $1 million, I would be saying, and we did this in Winona County, we burned up some reserves and used that for 0% tax increases to get to where the board felt was really where we needed to be. So I'm very comfortable with this. I like it. And I'm glad you did the work.
Okay, yeah.
And I can see it was fair.
Exercise,
It was
yeah.
good. It was a good amount of work to put in.
Yes, it was, but it kind of opened my eyes too to see how much variability we do have from time to time. And another thing too, it's 2010 was the last time that the county allocation for the Whitewater Joint Powers Board was increased, and it has not increased since then. So I think that's a good record, to be frugal, and I, anytime I look at the budgets, I know I can't increase that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. We don't need any, or do we need?
No, I didn't have it
It
as
says
a, it was just a
approve.
discussion.
Yeah, I don't see a motion. Do you?
Okay,
No, I think it's fine. We discussed it.
okay,
Sounds reasonable.
yeah. And then the next page I had put together, just pulling the numbers from the last 5 audits, what the cash reserve balances were and operating expenses, so. And,
Looks very thorough.
yeah, well, I must say Wanda Anderson assisted me. She's very efficient and she pointed me in the right direction, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So it's nice having her as a backup with QuickBooks.
So I guess we'll move on to item C then. Approve attachment A to Whitewater Joint Powers Board Agreement Amendment. That's like having occasional reviews or whatever. Can
Right,
you elaborate a
right.
bit?
2 years ago, I think it was in 2019, we did an amendment to the Whitewater Joint Powers Board Agreement, and I have a copy here for Bob for his reference. And, but when we had that updated, Tom Canan, the attorney from Olmsted County, recommended that we periodically review what he called policy procedures that are not included in the Joint Powers Agreement. So that's attachment A, and I thought since Bob is on board, that might be a good thing to, just to review quickly what some of the guidance, and these are things that were addressed at meetings that weren't really appropriate to add to the Joint Powers Agreement, and he said, so you don't have to keep changing or do an amendment to the agreement, you just have an attachment A that you review periodically and say, we don't like this, or let's change that. But I thought this would be a good time to do that.
But that needs to be voted on by the board.
Right,
That
and
attachment.
signed by the chair, or
Yeah,
vice chair.
I mean, otherwise it's, could be modified by non-elected members, so right? I mean, I read in here about, might be attorney's advice, might be other advice on which, but once the board votes on it, then it becomes the board's decision. So that's why I believe it needs to be.
Okay.
I believe it needs to be done by the board.
Okay. Yeah, so this has just information about, in the absence of the board chair and the vice chair, be able to sign checks and other necessary paperwork. A public comment policy, we had a discussion about that in April of 2019 and decided to move that to the front of the meeting agenda and how that should be conducted so that, time limits and it's at the board chair's discretion. And so there was that discussion, and then payment requests will be signed at board meetings. And then 2 signatures are required on checks, even though Midwest, they only say 1 signature will work for them. But as a board, this board decided, no, we want to see 2 signatures on that check. And then the payments for the shared coordinator position, which is mine, will be processed through Winona County payroll. So I'm technically a Winona County employee, so everything is taken care of on that end, which makes things a lot easier for QuickBooks for the Whitewater Joint Powers Board to not have to deal with payroll issues. And that with agreement between the Whitewater Joint Powers Board and Winona County, the Shared Services position, which is my position, the board does not have employees. And then because of that, we have minimum workers' compensation coverage. I think it's just $50. It's just the bare minimum, but we have the other coverage. And our payment that we paid in January is $1,400, which is pretty inexpensive compared to what other entities have to do. And that our business location is at Winona County SWCD. So, those are.
So is there any change? I mean,
The way-
There was no
this was
change from-
2011 and
Yep.
2012.
Steve, according to this, it says attachment A was last reviewed and approved on April 18th, 2019. So approved, does that mean we voted on it? If it did,
Yes.
then it says there are no additional recommended changes in operating procedures since that date. Then I would say maybe we don't need action
Oh,
if it's already been approved, that one without changes. So that's just throwing that out there, open the
Okay.
discussion at first. But
okay.
Well, and I wouldn't want to be the one to make a motion because Sheila is a Winona County employee, and I would be more comfortable with Wabasha, Olmsted, or a different county if that it was your motion and you approved it. And so, and I'm comfortable with everything. I think it all looks as it should look, and I don't know if we need to
I would
verify things with the motion.
probably say no need. I mean, from the way I read it, but I mean,
But then why do you have this financial procedures listed in here?
Because that was something that this board approved in the past, and Tom Canan recommended that it be put into an attachment A that the board can change from time to time and review from time to time. So that's why I put it on, because Bob is new.
Well, I feel like we approved the public comment and all the above
Oh, yeah.
issues at the April 18th, 2019 meeting. That was, one of my concerns was I wanted the public comment at the beginning of the meeting instead of at the end of the meeting. And Bob, just so you understand, I feel like if there's an item on the agenda and the public sees it, wants to come and address it, they should be able to speak to us before we vote on it, rather than after we've done our business and then speak to it. So that was the reasoning behind that. At that time, I don't remember this financial information being, but that's just going off memory, not off.
Yeah, and the financial information was pulled from I went through all the minutes, and anything that was decided on, it was Tom's recommendation. Anything that the board makes as a decision, just so that everybody remembers it and, has something quick, a quick and ready reference, rather than going back to the minutes of so, to have any policies into an attachment A that's attached to the joint powers agreement. And so that was his recommendation, and I thought it was good because any decisions that we make about how to conduct the meeting is in here, so that we don't have to scurry around and figure, well, when was that? So that's the whole purpose of this, is just to review what that was, and those are past decisions, and if they still hold, we can sign
Yeah,
it.
I guess I don't want to make a motion, you're running the meeting then, but just as for discussion, I'd be most comfortable if we stated that we reviewed and either reaffirmed or
Sure.
certainly,
adopted things as written here today.
I'd entertain a motion for that if someone wants to make one. Okay, it's James.
I don't know what to, to approve the consolidated attachment A for the joint powers agreement amendment.
Okay.
Consolidated, what? I didn't quite hear.
Well,
Attachment A.
attachment A.
Oh, attachment A. James moves to approve our last review of attachment A then. How would that, of
Yeah, that sounds
The-
great.
Whitewater Joint Powers Agreement. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, so second? Okay, by Bob. And now, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, so passes. All right, next item is D, Drinking Water Protection Grant. And we have to approve the grant amendment.
Okay. Last year, we received a drinking water protection grant from Bowser, and the two things that we had was to do septic system upgrades for low-income homeowners for systems that are failing, and also to do cover crop contracts. And so we did do the two cover crop contracts that we paid out on in December. But we did get a slow start, and I think I'm kind of attributing that to COVID. But anyway, to be able to better accommodate 3 years of cover crop contracts, I needed to extend the end date of that agreement 1 year. And so I asked Adam Wiley if I could do that, and he was able to get it for me, and so that's what I have on the board agenda. There's nothing changed to the agreement, it just extends the end date till 2023. So we'll have cover crop contracts for 21, 22, and 23. And so that'll, SWCD's partners felt more comfortable with that. Bowser does allow doing a prepayment on that third year of cover crops. If we did not extend the grant and we did 2 payments of cover crops, we could pay ahead to that landowner for that third year. So that is a possibility, but SWCD staff was not comfortable with that, and for obvious reasons. So I asked for an extension and was able to get it. So that's what this amendment does.
So, well, I just want to wait to see if you ask for discussion.
Sure.
Okay, so my question is going to be, at this point, the 1-1 plan is not far enough along, right? So if this work is going to be carried out, it needs to be carried out by this board at this time?
This grant is just the Whitewater. It doesn't go beyond the Whitewater boundaries.
In the future, if that board is fully established and fully functioning, could it would have jurisdiction to implement this grant if they chose to do so, right? Because all these acres are in the 1-1.
They are, but you're saying that they would be a board or the one watershed?
No, I'm asking about, I'm trying to legitimize the work of this board, and I'm concerned about duplication of process and the necessity to be paying 2 boards to do the same work. So at this point, I can see that we need to continue to do this. There's no doubt about it. But once that board is fully up and functioning, fully established, they certainly could do this, right? It wouldn't have to be us?
You're making a...
I'm asking.
They could, but they would not be a board. That's the policy committee and the participating entities that are involved if they want to create a joint powers board. Like with the root, it's not a board.
But they implement programs. They're gonna, if they're not implementing government programs, what are they there for? The Whitewater one, or the Winlac 1-1.
They would be implementing the plan that will be put together. And who implements the plan could be a joint powers board, or it could be the partners individually within that.
I'm just trying to play things out in the future.
The WinLac thing has its own, supposed to have its own guaranteed funding stream, right? Once we
Right.
get going.
Right.
So, I mean, it just depends on how that
But
goes.
they could distribute these funds as well.
I think it's a possibility, but from what I know so far, I mean, there's no way yet. But maybe eventually we can
They're not that far
consolidate.
along.
So my question is, if these one watershed, one plans, will at some point in time the Whitewater Joint Powers Board be dissolved, or will that continue as its own project under the one watershed, one plan?
It could be its own entity, as in one of the partners. It could be, that's up to this board, you know, how,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I'm
And,
kind
But-
of trying to figure this one
Yeah.
watershed, one plan out.
yeah,
It's confusing, but we did have the Southeast Minnesota Water Resource Board, and that board did choose to dissolve itself because all the work that that board did could be carried out through other methods. And so what I'm saying is today, we're not certainly at that point. So, you know, I'm going to vote, when you ask for the vote, I'm going to vote in favor of this, and we need to continue to move things along. But I think we need to look at, in the future, the redundancies and how work can be streamlined, how it can be carried out, and, you know, as our staff just pointed out, all the dues from all the different counties have been paid into this board, and, you know, do we need to continue to collect those taxpayers' dollars perpetually into the future when it could be done by this new organization that, you know,
Well, I think that should
We're
be
not there yet.
standard operating procedure for any business or
Yep.
entity, and I think that's a good point. Down the road, certainly as things change and needs are distributed differently, I think that's a fine thing to mention.
so I would make the motion to approve item D.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Steve, seconded by Bob to approve the Drinking Water Protection Grant amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item is the 319 nitrogen reduction grant update and cover crop update.
okay. Since we're getting towards the end of the 319 nitrogen reduction grant, I just thought the board might appreciate seeing what I put in the reports that I send to the PCA when I do that. And so, and I handed that out because we had, it was included in the packet, but then I added, on Tuesday, I added the one last cover crop payment from Olmsted County. So that changed the numbers a little bit. So I have this handout, and it has showing for each of the 3 growing years that we had, 2018, 19, and 2020. 2020, we still might get a couple more, you know, once they turn in their their paperwork. But I thought it was really interesting that the contracted acres that we had, you know, we could pay, the contract was for 30 acres, but oftentimes that landowner, when they planted those acres, they went ahead and did the whole field. And so you can see almost 200 acres extra were planted in 2018. In 2019, we had one farmer that went gangbusters and brought our extra acres up to 357. And so far in 2020, we had 240 extra acres. So that's really nice to see. But then when you go to the last column, based on the total number of acres that were planted in cover crops under this grant, and keep in mind that SWCDs have other cover crop programs, you know, so there's lots of different pots, especially I know with Winona County SWCD. With just our program alone in 2018, based on formulas, 4,820 pounds of nitrogen were kept from going into the groundwater. And then in 2019, it was 6,122, and so far in 2020, 4,987. So that's the formula that's being used when I submit it to the PCA in the reports that I do.
So Sheila, when you say pounds of nitrogen eliminated from going into the groundwater,
It was scavenged by cover crops.
okay.
That's the
So
crop
you're saying it's
usage.
it's not a reduction in numbers that we know were applied. It's
Correct.
a formula that we are assuming that those
Yep.
cover crops used, so therefore tied it up.
Right,
Okay.
correct. Yes. Yeah, so the farmer just used less nitrogen in his application rate. That would not be captured here.
Okay.
And so we had 14 completed successful contracts. So that started and did the 3 years. And I have 3 that need 1 more year, and 2 ended up being canceled contracts for various reasons. And then on the second page of the handout, I highlighted those who have completed their 3 years of cover crop contracts. And one thing I plan on doing, and
Is
I'll
that
probably,
on the electronic?
yeah, the handout that I have,
Okay.
in today's handout.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Might even be yellow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got you. I was looking on.
Yeah. So what I'll be doing, since we're getting to the end of a lot of these people finishing, I know there's a couple that plan to do cover crops next year, in fact. What I plan to do is put together a list of questions, open-ended questions about how, what was, to try and find out what their experiences were in doing our cover crop program, what they learned, what they thought we should have done differently, and things like that. So I'm going to put together a list of questions, and I think I'll float it by Josh to get input from him. But I'm going to follow up with everybody and see, just to and that'll help with my report.
And will you ask also their plans moving forward with
Definitely.
continuing
Yes,
the practice?
that is important,
Yeah.
because these number reductions are just for that year, so you have to do cover crops every year to gain the benefit. So yes, I will. So anyway, that's my update.
Okay, so agency reports, are there
No, we
anything?
have we have a cover crop payment
Oh,
that's added to
okay.
the agenda.
All right.
And so I have, this is one that just turned in the paperwork. Bush in Olmsted County did his cover crop payment, and I can pass this around so everybody can view it. And his payment will be $900. And this is his second year. He was already planning on doing, he signed up late, so his first year of cover crops was last year, and then, or 19, and then 2020 was the second year. He plans to do a cover crop next year under this grant. And he was the reason why we did the 1 month extension, so he could plant in September. So,
Chair, is the floor open just for discussion at this point?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think a related topic was I did take a trip down to Kentucky recently, and through Indiana and Illinois and Kentucky. I could not believe the amount of cover crop acres that it was. I didn't know what was going on that large nationally, and since they have a much longer growing season, they establish them. The fields were green. It was encouraging to see that much going on. So,
my daughter lives in Alabama, and when we go down in the spring, I'm impressed with that too. They're
this was just
they're
like a week
everywhere.
ago that I went down, and
Yep.
there wasn't enough snow, so I couldn't see the cover crops growing.
Yep.
So it's not just locally here that we're promoting it. It's good to see.
Oh, did we lose?
No.
Is that my phone?
It's probably Matt trying to call in again. Is he still on?
Matt, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
Okay.
Someone was dialing, I think, but,
That was all I had for discussion.
Okay.
okay.
So we have a motion to.
Well-
I'll move to approve the final, item
I'll
F,
second.
the additional cover crop.
Okay, been moved by Bob, seconded by Steve to approve Mark Cronbush cover crop, $900 reimbursement, 3-year plan, whatever it is, so. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? No one? Okay. So passes to approve the cover crop agreement for Mark Cronenbush. So, are we at agency reports now? If there's nothing else that I forgot.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so no agency reports. No one has anything in the paper or anything. So the next thing then is our next meeting, is April 15th, 2021. That sound good with everyone naturally, so. All right, so now, I guess we're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'm getting to that, so I just wanted to make sure we were done first. Anything else? All right, so we got a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, Steve and Bob, to adjourn the meeting, or was it you? Okay, James.
I did.
It was James. Sorry, James seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 No one will oppose, of course, I don't think, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
That was,
Thanks, Matt, we'll see you in April.
yeah, hope you recover
I think
there.
he's off already.
Oh,
I think he's done. But, yeah, it was a little rough. But,
no, what?
That's fine.
Completely unexpected and impromptu.
usually when I have to chair like the soil and water, I'll go through my whole minutes and I'll write the page numbers of everything that I need to access and whatever, so that it goes a little smoother, but.
So, you still can sign checks
Today.
today.
Do you need me to sign checks today? I can do that, you know. Or right, I'm still the functioning, or,
Yeah, your signature is still at the bank, so I'd say let's do that. So if you and Lynn sign the checks, and Lynn, you'll sign this, you already signed the minutes, and so you'd have to sign here and date,
Okay.
and here and date, and then I'll let you do your secretary function as well.